You know, there's something really powerful that happens in the twin flame journey when the divine masculine finally stops running. And I'm talking about that moment when everything shifts, when the walls come down, when the fear dissolves. It's like watching someone wake up from a long sleep and suddenly they see everything clearly for the first time. Before we get into what actually happens in that moment, let me paint you a picture of what this journey looks like. The twin flame connection isn't your typical love story. It's intense, it's transformative, and honestly, it can be terrifying, especially for the divine masculine energy. Now, when I say divine masculine, I'm not necessarily talking about a man. This energy can show up in anyone regardless of gender. It's that part of the connection that tends to be more action oriented, more logical, more afraid of vulnerability. The running phase is something almost every twin flame couple goes through. The divine masculine feels this incredible pull toward their twin, but at the same time, everything inside them screams to run away. Why? Because this connection forces them to look at everything they've been avoiding, every wound, every fear, every part of themselves they've kept hidden. It's like holding up a mirror that shows not just who you are, but who you're meant to become. And that's scary as hell. But then something shifts. Something inside them changes. And when the divine masculine finally stops running, when they turn around and face the connection head on, the transformation is immediate. Not gradual, not slow, instant. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The 7 things that happen the moment the divine masculine stops running and fully embraces the twin flame journey. 1. The fear transforms into courage. The first thing that happens is almost magical. All that fear that's been driving them away suddenly transforms into courage. It's like flipping a switch. One moment they're terrified of the intensity, of the vulnerability, of the change this connection demands. The next moment, they're ready to face it all. This isn't about the fear disappearing completely. That's not how it works. The fear is still there, but it no longer controls them. Think of it like this. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a cliff with a bungee cord attached. The fear of jumping doesn't go away, but the courage to jump anyway shows up stronger than the fear. That's what happens for the divine masculine in this moment. They suddenly realize that running hasn't made anything better. They've tried distance. They've tried distractions. They've tried convincing themselves that what they feel isn't real or isn't worth the trouble. But none of it has worked because you can't run from your own soul. You can't escape a connection that exists on a level deeper than the physical world. So they make a choice, a conscious choice, to stop running and start facing whatever comes. And this courage doesn't just affect the twin flame connection, it spills over into every area of their life. They start handling challenges differently. They stop avoiding difficult conversations. They begin taking risks they would never have considered before. It's like the twin flame connection becomes a training ground for becoming the strongest version of themselves. You'll notice this shift when the divine masculine starts communicating more openly, when they stop making excuses for their behavior, when they actually start showing up instead of disappearing when things get intense. That's courage in action. That's the transformation happening in real time. 2. They start doing the inner work. The second thing that happens instantly is they dive into the inner work. And I mean, really dive in. Before this moment, they might have been aware that they had some stuff to deal with, but they weren't ready to actually deal with it. Now, suddenly, they're all in. This looks different for everyone. Some people start going to therapy, some start meditating or journaling, some start reading books about healing and personal growth. The method doesn't matter as much as the commitment. They're finally willing to look at their wounds, their patterns, their programming from childhood, all the stuff that's been running their life from the background. Here's what you need to understand. The divine masculine runs because the twin flame connection triggers every unhealed wound they have, every abandonment issue, every time they learn to shut down emotionally, every moment they were told to be strong and not show weakness. It all comes up. And initially, running feels easier than dealing with it. But when they stop running, they realize that healing is the only way forward. They start recognizing their patterns. Maybe they notice how they push people away when they get too close. Maybe they see how they use work or hobbies to avoid dealing with emotions. Maybe they understand for the first time how their childhood shaped their relationships. And they start doing something about it. They start setting boundaries where they never had them before. They start expressing emotions they've kept bottled up for years. They start forgiving people, including themselves, for past hurts. This inner work becomes their priority because they finally understand that they can't have a healthy twin flame union while carrying around all this unhealed baggage. 3. Communication opens up completely. The third shift is all about communication. When the divine masculine stops running, the walls come down and real communication becomes possible. We're not talking about small talk or surface level conversations. We're talking about the deep stuff, the vulnerable stuff, the kind of communication that actually builds connection. Before this point, trying to get the divine masculine to open up probably felt like pulling teeth. They'd shut down during important conversations. They'd change the subject when things got too emotional. They'd go silent for days or weeks without explanation. All of that was the running showing up in communication form. But now something's different. They start initiating conversations instead of avoiding them. They're willing to talk about their feelings, even when it's uncomfortable. They stop pretending everything's fine when it's not. They actually tell you what's going on inside their head and heart. This doesn't mean every conversation is easy or that they suddenly become experts at emotional expression. For many divine masculines, talking about feelings is like learning a new language. They're going to stumble. They're going to struggle to find the right words. But the key difference is they're trying. They're not running away from the conversation anymore. You might notice they start asking questions about how you're feeling. They start checking in regularly. They start saying things they've never been able to say before, like how much you mean to them or how scared they are of losing you. These moments of vulnerability are huge. They're proof that the running has stopped and the real work of building a connection has begun. 4. They take responsibility for their actions. Here's a big one. The fourth thing that happens is the divine masculine starts taking responsibility. No more excuses. No more blaming circumstances or other people for their behavior. They own their stuff. During the running phase, you probably heard a lot of justifications. They were too busy. The timing wasn't right. They needed space. They weren't ready. And maybe some of that was true, but it was also a way of avoiding responsibility for how their running affected you and the connection. When they stop running, all of that changes. They start acknowledging the pain they caused. They stop making excuses for disappearing or being inconsistent. They recognize that their actions have consequences, and they start making different choices because of it. This might show up as an actual apology. Not a half-hearted, sorry if I hurt you kind of thing, but a real acknowledgement of specific actions and their impact. It might show up as changed behavior, where they start following through on what they say they're going to do. It might show up as them being honest about their limitations instead of overpromising and under-delivering. Taking responsibility also means they stop playing the victim. They stop acting like the intensity of the connection is something being done to them. They recognize their part in the dynamic. They see how their running created pain not just for you, but for themselves too. And they commit to doing better. 5. The connection deepens on every level. The fifth transformation is about the connection itself. When the divine masculine stops running, the bond between you deepens instantly on every single level. Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Everything intensifies in the best possible way. On the physical level, their presence changes. They're actually present when they're with you instead of being physically there, but mentally checked out. The energy between you shifts. You can feel that they're not holding back anymore. Even simple things like eye contact or physical touch carry more weight because they're not guarded anymore. Emotionally, they start letting you in. They share things they've never shared with anyone. They let you see their fears and insecurities. They stop pretending to have it all together. And this vulnerability creates a depth of emotional intimacy that wasn't possible when they were running. Mentally, you start connecting on a different wavelength. You can have real conversations about the future. You can make plans together. You can dream together. Before, any talk of the future probably made them uncomfortable or caused them to pull away. Now, they're engaged in building something real with you. Spiritually, the connection becomes undeniable. You might notice more synchronicities, more moments where you're thinking the same thing at the same time, more instances of telepathic communication, or feeling each other's emotions from a distance. The spiritual bond that's always been there becomes more obvious and more active in your daily lives. 6, they start working toward union. The sixth thing that happens is practical action toward union. When the divine masculine stops running, they stop just talking about the connection or feeling the connection. They start actually building toward a real, tangible union in the physical world. This looks like making concrete plans, talking about how to navigate obstacles, being willing to make compromises and adjustments to make the relationship work. If there are practical barriers like distance or life circumstances, they start actively working on solutions instead of using those barriers as excuses to keep running. You'll see them making space for you in their life, not just squeezing you in between other priorities, but actually rearranging things to make the relationship a priority. They introduce you to important people in their life. They include you in their future plans. They make decisions with the relationship in mind. This phase is where the twin flame connection starts looking more like a real relationship and less like a cosmic mystery. And that's not a bad thing. The spiritual connection is beautiful and important, but union also requires practical action in the physical world. The divine masculine finally understands this and starts doing the work to make union possible. 7, they embody their highest self. The seventh and final transformation is the most profound. When the divine masculine stops running, they start becoming their highest self. Not perfectly, not all at once, but the journey toward their fullest potential begins in earnest. This is what the twin flame connection was always meant to trigger. Not just romance, not just intensity, but actual transformation into the person you're meant to be. And for the divine masculine, stopping the running is often the catalyst that sets everything else in motion. They start pursuing their purpose with new energy. Things they've been putting off suddenly become priorities. Dreams they've been afraid to chase suddenly seem possible. They start showing up differently in the world, with more confidence and authenticity. You'll notice them making healthier choices across the board. Better boundaries, better habits, better relationships with everyone in their life, not just you. It's like the decision to stop running from the twin flame connection gives them permission to stop running from themselves and their potential. And here's the beautiful part. As they step into their highest self, they naturally call you forward into yours. The connection becomes a catalyst for both of you becoming more of who you're meant to be. That's the real purpose of the twin flame journey. Not just to find your other half, but to become whole within yourself while sharing that wholeness with another person. So if you're waiting for your divine masculine to stop running, know this. When it happens, it's going to be worth the wait. The T-transformation is real. The changes are instant. And the journey toward union truly begins.